Welcome to FacilitiesU, a space where we have honest, practical conversations about building and facility management. Here, we share real experiences, real challenges, and real solutions to help you in your day-to-day role as a facility leader. This podcast is powered by Limpiar, simplifying maintenance, compliance, and communication. Let's dive in.
Today, we're excited to kick off our very first episode with a special guest, Alex Bedron. Alex brings extensive experience across the facilities world, and now he's the strategy and operations manager at Limpiar. He's known for building strong operational strategies, improving efficiency, and helping teams scale in smart, practical ways. Alex, thank you for being here. We're thrilled to learn from your journey and your insights.
Oh, thank you so much for having me on the inaugural episode. This is exciting. I'm glad to be here.
Awesome. So, Alex, I have a few questions for you. So I was looking at your LinkedIn profile, and I see that you have worked across colleges, stadiums, luxury facilities, and now software as a service. So what originally drew you into the world of facilities management?
So I guess we can start at the very earliest. So my father was, he was in the world of refrigeration. So my dad was always a really hands-on person. I remember him doing a lot of work at home, and he actually oversaw the entire heating, HVAC system, and just overall climate control for the college campus that I ended up going to, which was funny because, that was the way I was able to afford going to that university, was thanks to my father's hard work for so long. So I always watched him growing up and really admired his handiness, his ability, his knowledge, and overall like his adventurousness. So when I started in undergrad in New York City, I actually got my first job there as a student was working for the rec center, working for their local gym, working for the institution's gym.
Yes.
And started at the front desk, started folding towels like everybody else does, and then eventually became a student manager and got to oversee the rec center at night when the actual full-time managers weren't there. And that kind of helped me understand and fall in love with the idea of facilities management, of running a building efficiently to provide like the best services for the customer base that was going there, right? As someone who utilized the facility himself, I had a passion for it, and I wanted to help, friends, fellow students have the best experience they could. So I realized that I was in a field that I was helping a large group of people, right? I wasn't just doing something that helps a very small customer base or that does this. I kind of felt the power of like change and the power of like, just reinforcing people's abilities to succeed. So that was really what drew me into it. And then I guess later we'll go into kind of how it grew and grew over my career.
Such an interesting story, actually. It's like you were born to do this, right?
That's right. Despite what my majors were in college, I guess I was born to do this. So yes.
Yeah. So what inspired the transition to Limpiar, which is a software as a service? What problems did you see in the industry that made you want to help solve them?
So I have to be very transparent and say that most of the positions that I've had across my time, I've always inherited software. I've never been able to choose the platforms that I was utilizing.
Oh.
So, when I got to SoFi Stadium, we had a very small work order system, but more importantly, we had a very elaborate accounting thing. And a lot of the software that I've utilized, a lot of the platforms were based more so to assist the financial team than to assist the internal operations team. So obviously the biggest competitor was what we utilized when I was in the luxury gym industry. And it just the platform could not work the way I truly wanted it to for efficiency, for time saving. I know we'll get to the biggest challenges later, and it's always time. That's human nature, right? Time is what's working. against everybody in every career with deadlines and things like that. But when I first met Demi, who's the CEO here at Limpiar, we began chatting and I saw a vision. I saw a vision of what we could create together and what we could create together with a facilities manager with internal operations in mind. And I can say it's part selfishly because I want to help create the platform that I wish I always had, that I wish my coworkers had. So now transitioning to this team and working together to build something from the ground up that is FM first. That is, how does this platform help someone, especially with multiple locations, which can be the most challenging job for a facilities manager, keeping all those things in your head, keeping all the details, vendors, timelines, deadlines, all those things in your head. Now we're building something that is cognizant of all of that.
Right. So, Alex, this question, I'm just thinking about it, but I would like to know what problems is Limpiar solving?
Yes. So first and foremost, it is automation and predictive maintenance. So there were time cognizant operations that had to happen every 3 months, every year. So for instance, if you work in a gym, you need to open a work order every 3 months to have services done on your dryers, right? We unfortunately we had a fire at one location from not doing our due diligence with our laundry equipment. So every 3 months, I needed to go in by hand. I oversaw 7 locations at one time. I had to go in by hand every 3 months and manually open a work order for all 7 locations.
Yeah.
What I had always wished our platform could do was either automate that, schedule that. That was a few hours of my day that I was losing, that I felt that time could have been better utilized doing walkthroughs, getting my eyes on the facilities, understanding and planning for proactive maintenance. But unfortunately, with the limited tools that were offered by other work order platforms, I always felt like I was behind. I always felt like I was basically just trying to keep up, trying to tread water. And at some point, right, you want to hit your full stroke. You want to be swimming as fast as you can. You want to be, and so that is really why we tried to build a software platform
And
that takes those things into account.
sorry for the interruption, Alex, but that actually it has to do with my next question. So back when you were a facilities manager, how did you discover and trust these technology tools? Like, was it word of mouth, through colleagues, mentors, or hands-on experience?
So most often, as I mentioned before, it was inheriting software
Yeah.
that I had to acclimate myself to. But there were instances where we were able to bring in particular platforms or particular portals. Like at my last job, I ended up having to build an asset management tool for all of our gym equipment from the ground up.
Okay.
And so quite often it was, if there was any intrigue behind a new like form of efficiency, it was always done from like either building it myself, or sometimes it was word of mouth when I worked in with the NCAA and when I worked in college athletics, sometimes from a fellow facilities manager at a different university. I would, get a recommendation for this. But that was the hardest part, was also kind of fighting for that expense, right? As you
Right.
have as you have a certain budget for your software, you almost have to be extremely, what's the word? You have to be very particular about what you ask for a budget for. So, we had something that would, we had a work order platform, but that would really just track budgets and expenses and open work orders.
Okay.
But then we would also have, like something outside of that for communication. We would have something outside of that that synced all of our calendars. So now, having all that in one platform, expedites that, makes it one cost. But that goes back to how difficult it was to kind of source new software to get people to take a chance, right? And again, you have to pick your hills that you die on. You really had to pick that one piece of software that was going to, better your job. But yeah, most often word of mouth. Or when I was working for the luxury gym brand, we would get hundreds of emails a day that said, try our product, try this, try that. And to be honest, I didn't have the time to filter through all of that. So, the marketing emails were not, of assistance during that time.
Yes, of course. And why do you think there's often hesitation around adopting new technology in facilities? And what actually helps facilities managers feel confident using new technology tools?
Facilities management, internal operations, construction, all of those areas requires such a knowledge base, it really is one of those jobs where every year of experience just makes you better at the job.
Wow.
But at the moment, we definitely have an aging workforce combined with, I don't want to say an addiction to the status quo, but it is really difficult when someone has had success for decades to say, hey, maybe you want to change your process. And there is a little bit of hesitation, and especially with the newer platforms that are utilizing things like artificial intelligence.
Yes.
Because with the communication and with a lot of the, I don't want to say fake news, but a lot of the things are making AI seem like it's a replacement tool. And it's not. Right. It's additive. It's completely complementary. It's never going to take the job of a human being that needs to get his eyes in a building, that needs to talk with vendors, that needs to take in bids and negotiate the price of each one. Right. So I do think that there is a slow adoption of software. I also think that what is offered right now is not built individually for a facilities manager. So someone can see how it would make the job easier for the person who is accounting for your budgets or speaking directly big picture to the large projects that we're doing. But when it comes to day-to-day, there just wasn't something that was worth learning that would tell you, okay, this will take 2 hours a day off of your workload. This will make you more accountable. Most importantly, this will keep your building safer. When I was mentioning that consistent maintenance that we needed to do on our laundry equipment, that made the building safer. And if there's a teammate, if there's a tool that is helping you kind of do that, it also kind of relieves your stress. And it's all these things that I just don't think we've identified, and that we're still using spreadsheets and we're still using, hard copy blueprints. And whenever I would take over a location and I would say, hey, where are the blueprints for here? Where's all this stuff? No one ever knew where it was because we never had a centralized database. Right. So, it's making people's jobs more difficult in the end, but the risk reward, I don't think has been identified yet.
Wow, that's super interesting. So overall, they're kind of afraid of the change, right?
Yes. And I think also it comes down to job security. It comes down to, you do not want anything that makes the perception seem like your job is easier or could be done by someone else, where, again, new software it's not doing that. Again, it's completely additive. And I think if you spoke to anyone in there, they would gladly take something that makes their job easier and more efficient, especially with multiple locations. That's something, and we can get into that later, but that is again, the hardest part of a facilities manager's jobs, is when you have to keep that entire knowledge base just up here or in spreadsheets. So
definitely. And Alex, you have managed large teams and high stakes operations with budgets over 1 million. I saw that on your LinkedIn profile. So my question is, what's one high pressure moment that you taught you something essential about leadership and facilities management?
Yeah, I think, all right. So this is going to need a little bit of background. So
Of course.
when I was working at SoFi Stadium, um, oversaw facilities there, and that was a mixture of everything. It was, I had a staff of 13 people, and together we put together all of the event logistics. We were out there, forklifting items to, help with ingress and egress in both our parking lots and our loading dock. We were managing the locker room, everything. So we would put together all of these timelines, guides, handbooks. We would have multiple meetings to go over event day. Well, we had a singer who had filled the stadium with over 80,000 fans.
Right.
And about the fifth or sixth song that he was performing, he comes out and he says, "I've lost my voice. The concert is over." And at this point, we are about 45 minutes into what was planned to be a 3 or 4 hour event.
Okay.
At this point, we are not set up for egress. We are still set up for ingress. We still have 4 lanes bringing cars in and 1 lane bringing cars out. We still have the loading dock set for merchandise, sales, and not for egress. So all of a sudden, myself, our team, parking and transportation, engineering, we all had to come together to solve this crisis. How do we get 80,000 people out of this building 2 hours ahead of time?
Right.
The central theme that taught me was the ability to pivot, the ability to think on your feet. And someone like me who does not easily get stressed and never really, it's going to happen regardless. It doesn't really help me to, get flustered or to scream or yell at a staff or do anything like that. But you can put together all the guidebooks. You could put together all the standard operating procedures. But from an FM's perspective, from an internal operations perspective, so many things can go wrong. And what that taught me is, despite things not going to plan, the preparedness, the information, the platform you have with all of the communication, those things are built in for when the day is going the worst. All your preparedness is never going into when things are going to plan, when things are going perfectly efficient.
Exactly.
So as we're building this new work order platform, I thought about, well, if that happened, if a team had to pivot and to be the most efficient to get through an obstacle, what if we could streamline everything? What if the timeline was built into a platform? What if communication and the group chat? What if you weren't on your phone and going into the work order platform, then swiping over and seeing what everyone is writing in the group chat, then swiping over and seeing what the timeline was in Excel, then swiping, what if everything was in one area? So that taught me the value of not only preparedness, but also like the efficient, streamlined communication and things like that.
Right.
And then most of all, like from a big picture kind of perspective, it's always just, I always found that the less that I got flustered, the better ability to kind of deal with those things, right? It's like when you're at when I was working for gyms and the HVAC would go out, and all of a sudden we weren't going to be able to afford the customers air conditioning for 1, 2, 3 days. It's like dealing with that, dealing with customer feedback, and then also having the relationships with the people that you work with, so you can have that kind of safe communication, honesty, and that you're setting realistic deadlines. And that all goes back to preparedness and just, planning for your worst days, basically.
Wow. Such an interesting story, Alex.
It was quite the night. I never want to go through it again. But if we could help 80,000 people get out of a stadium that was not built for that,
Yes.
then certainly I don't think that there's not many things that team that I was there together with and personally, we couldn't handle.
Wow. So Alex, I have a last question for you.
Yes.
So what advice would you give to someone that's starting their career in facilities management today?
I apologize because this is going to be a very long answer, but I do think that
That's
there's
fine.
quite
Go
a
ahead.
few things that I would love to tell 20-year-old Alex Padron, which
Yes.
seems like ages ago. I think the very first thing is just take in as much knowledge as you can from mentors, from people in the field, from those that you work along with. And most importantly, take in as much knowledge as you can from people outside of the facilities management world, which means when I worked in gyms and most of my correspondence was with the general managers or the directors of membership, keeping an honest and open dialogue with them and providing realistic timelines. The hardest part is if you have a vendor coming in and they say that they're going to come in 2 days and analyze your commercial HVAC unit. Do not give the impression that that is going to be a repair day of. Always make sure that you are being honest with the people that you work with and just letting them know that this may be a longer process so they can get ahead of the communication and the things like that that make the facilities manager's job more bearable. I think the biggest piece of advice that I could give, however, is to create this amalgamation of knowledge and tools. Do not be afraid to take on new pieces of software, AI, co-pilots, anything like that to make you more efficient. Because you are in such a proactive business. Nothing drives a customer or someone you're working alongside with, nothing drives them more, nothing ruffles their feathers more than not providing the safest and most efficient building possible. And that takes a lot of proactivity. So that amalgam that I mentioned, having a teammate that can remind you of when certain maintenance needs to happen, that can automatically open work orders for you, that you can open a platform and see where, if you're running locations, where all 7 of your budgets are. How much money do I have? Oh, I've got $200,000 left in this one location. Get with the general manager. Say, hey, we've got the money to do a project for you. What would you like to do? And you talk through it and you say, okay, we would like to get the floor refinished in the yoga studio, or we would like to get all of our locks fixed in our locker room. Being able to present that proactively and say, hey, we've got this allocation before the end of the year. What can we do for you to make sure that this gets applied, fairly and starts the new year off right? So I just think if it's one piece of advice, just mix in the modern with my dad could tell you how to fix industrial HVAC compressor step by step, but my dad never really got into the work order platforms, all those things. And I think with that, he would have been unstoppable. I mean, he was already just an incredible person, had that job for 25 years, was truly trusted. But I do feel like, as he got later into his career, I think that combination would have made him even more dangerous. And I say dangerous in a good way. He would have been, super, I say that in the old West way, super prepared for anything, super prepared for any fight, that is it. Just don't be reticent. Don't be hesitant to, and it can be inundating. It can be, it can be, what's the word? Not scary, but intimidating. It can be intimidating to learn anything. At the current moment, I'm trying to learn, the dev side of, behind the scenes. And that's super intimidating for me because, but it's something that if you put your mind to, I do think it can be fully complementary. And I do think that your knowledge will never be replaced. Artificial intelligence will never replace the human brain.
I agree.
But it can get the hamster wheel just going a little bit faster. And that's all we want,
Definitely. So, Alex, thank you so much. Great conversation, great insights, and a great first episode. We were so happy that you're here with us. And to everyone listening, thank you for being part of Facilities Leaders Unfiltered. And we'll see you in the next episode. Thank you so much, Alex.
Of course. And I want to say thank you so much for including me and trusting me with the first episode. I think that there's a bright future in this. And I hope that what I was able to say was helpful for any facilities managers who are either just entering the field or have been there for 40 years and will maybe provide a little bit of inspiration to just pick up that one little technological asset that's going to help them so much. So thank you, Rose.
Definitely. Thank you. Have a great day, Alex.
You as well. Take care.
This has been FacilitiesU, powered by Limpiar. For tools that simplify maintenance, compliance, and communication, head over to limpiar.online. See you on the next one!